If I must starve, let it be in your arms. By Ignium 807. Chapter 6. The next morning, Jaskier met Eskel at the stables. He is finishing up preparations for the day's ride, packing weapons and food into his saddlebags. Jaskier has his loot, a sack full of gold from the previous night's competition, and his usual bag of clothes, snacks, and medical supplies. Enough time spent with Geralt has trained him better than any healer could. Eskel holds out his hand. Jaskier isn't sure why, so he stares at it blindly. The witcher snorts at him. "Your stuff?" he prompts. "Oh!" Jaskier hands over his bags, fingers lingering on his instrument. Eskel takes it gingerly and ties it to the horse so it won't fall off or get bumped as they ride. He slings himself onto the horse and holds out his hand again. "You coming?" Jaskier takes the hand with a giddy smile. Geralt never lets him ride. "Will your horse be all right with the extra load?" Eskel pulls him up and settles him on the horse in one easy move. "He don't weigh much, bud. We'll go slower than I would normally, but she'll be fine." They set out from town at an easy clip. It's been a while since Jaskier rode a horse, but he is technically nobility, so his childhood involved quite a few riding lessons. Riding with someone is new, though. Jaskier only ever gets on Roach if someone is injured, and it's usually it. It's a shame, Jaskier thinks, that he doesn't ride with Geralt more often, because this is lovely. He's settled at the front of the saddle. Eskel has a few inches on him so he can see, and the witcher's arms are around him holding the reins. Jaskier leans back into the hold, soaking up Eskel's body heat to combat the spring morning chill. He was wondering when Eskel's path would cross his own. It seems an accident that they met at the palace, but he knows better. Eskel sought him out. Jaskier knows how much bravery that must have taken. He knows how much pain Eskel must be in to make such bravery necessary. Jaskier notices the sharp inhale of breath when his back presses flush against Eskel's chest, but he doesn't say anything, just closes his eyes and relaxes, hoping that the man behind him will take the cue to relax a little as well. His muscles are held perfectly still, corded and taut like he's balancing on the edge of a knife blade. It looks exhausting. Eskel shifts, his arms twitching inward, brushing against Jaskier's sides. He's holding himself just barely out of reach, touching as little as possible. If Jaskier had witcher senses, he's sure Eskel would smell of nervousness, of longing. Jaskier sits forward a little, pulls Eskel's arms tight around him, and relaxes his back again, trying to make the motion feel natural, trying to get Eskel to accept it without fear or fanfare. "Why were you before Temeria?" he asks. Eskel launches into a halting, awkward description of his weeks in Sintra, and Jaskier cuddles back against him, pleased when the witcher doesn't move his arms away. He tells his own stories when Eskel is done, speaking of monsters and songs, of beautiful women and angry husbands, of his time at university, learning his craft. Jaskier lets his voice carry them, and with every passing mile, Eskel curls a little closer. The tavern smells like urine, and the ale tastes worse. That's all Lambert can focus on as he leans his head against the wall, holding down a groan. His entire right side is plastered with bruises, courtesy of a particularly vicious striga and the ungrateful town it lived near. The pain wouldn't bother him so much if his ale were better. Not for the first time, he wonders what he'd be doing if Jaskier were with him. Bathing more, probably. He wouldn't be so cold at night. The bruises on his side would fade beneath a gentle touch. Even his piss-poor ale wouldn't be so bad with Jaskier singing in the background. No wonder Geralt keeps him around. And no wonder he showed up at Kaer Morhen a changed man. Lambert was barely around Jaskier a week, and already he could feel something in him shifting. The path doesn't seem so harsh, nor the fighting so hard, when he thinks about collapsing into bed and being held. Don't make Destiny do all the work next time. Come find me. Lambert will. He'll find his way back to Jaskier's arms if it costs him a limb to do it. But not yet. The monsters don't stop just because Lambert is lonely. There is work to be done before he can allow himself a rest. He takes a swig from his tankard, grimacing as it goes down. At the front of the tavern, a young bard takes the stage. Her short hair falls pleasingly around a face that's set with determination. Lambert listens idly as he eats, already planning where to head next. The bard plays a few songs he knows, mostly sea shanties from Skellig, before moving on to longer ballads, epics. She sings of the White Wolf and his exploits, bringing Geralt's adventures to life. It's strange to hear Jaskier's words sung by another, but that isn't unpleasant. He nods along to a few, remembering warm nights when Jaskier would pluck at his lute in the quiet of their room, working out new material that Lambert wasn't around long enough to hear. The female bard finishes one epic and launches into another, this time about a witcher's heroic battle with a chimera. A chimera? Lambert sits up straight and starts to listen properly, teasing out every word the bard says. Her voice rises to the heavens, singing of an epic sword fight and a terrible beast, of the man who fought to protect his city, of the horrible scar he received as a reward. He presses a hand to the ridged skin beneath his armor, tracing the path the chimera's claws traced so many years ago. Because this song isn't about the White Wolf. It's about him. It's about Lambert. And suddenly Jaskier doesn't feel so far away. Eskel calls a halt as the sun goes down. Alone, he usually rides through the night, or at least walks his horse, but he's not alone. Jaskier is with him, curled up against Eskel's chest, as though he finds nothing to fear in the arms of a witcher. "We'll make camp here," he says. Jaskier slides off the horse, and immediately Eskel feels the loss. He hadn't noticed how cold it was. They make a fire. Eskel hunts a few rabbits, and Jaskier skins them perfectly, laying the furs out to dry before handing over the meat to be cooked. Eskel doesn't know why he expected the bard to be squeamish, but clearly he has adjusted to life on the path. The rabbits are skewered and ready to roast a few minutes later. A hand on Eskel's shoulder stops him before he can put them on the fire. "Wait," Jaskier says, rummaging through his bag. "I brought something for this." He pulls out 3 pouches of spice. Eskel can smell how fresh they are. Jaskier must have picked them up that morning before they met at the stables. "Why?" Eskel asks. It seems a stupid question, but he says it with honesty. He has always eaten the meat he hunts plain. Jaskier scoffs and rolls his eyes fondly. "I know you would just believe in dealing with things with stoic silence, but there's no need to be miserable about it. Food should have flavor, darling, even when you hunt it yourself." Eskel takes the pouches in gobsmacked silence. Carrying spice for cooking on the road is such an obvious idea, yet he hadn't thought of it even after a life spent on the path. He mixes the spices together in a bowl he carries for grinding potion ingredients, rubs each rabbit with some of the mixture, and pops the meat over the fire. It's the best meal he's had in ages. After they eat, Jaskier leans against a tree and strums at his lute. The music is all low tones, pitched to match the night around them. Eskel sits at the fire, aching to press himself close to the bar, but uncertain how to go about it. "It's a beautiful lute," he says. Jaskier's eyes glow with pleasure in the firelight. "Thank you. It was the gift from the first adventure I ever went on with Geralt." Eskel's eyes catch on the strings of the lute. They're metal, an odd detail, especially given the instrument's origins. "I thought elven lutes used gut strings," he says. Jaskier glances down at his hands as if reminding himself what his instrument is made of. "Yes, I had to have them replaced after—" He gasps and raises his head to meet Eskel's eyes. "How did you know that?" Eskel shrugs. "I pay attention to the world around me." It's a vague answer, a silly answer, and they both know it. "Nice try." Jaskier laughs. "But I don't believe you. Did you study elven music or something at Kaer Morhen?" He scrutinizes Eskel for a moment before a shit-eating grin spreads across his face. "You play!" "No, I don't," Eskel says too quickly. "You do!" Jaskier growls. He's practically bouncing where he sits, looking at Eskel with an expression of unbridled joy. "You can't lie to me, Witcher. I see the cracks in that armor of yours." He leans in like they're sharing a secret, whispering so only enhanced hearing could pick up on his words. "You play the lute." Even if Eskel wanted to resist that smile, he couldn't. He's too punch-drunk on the smell of rapturous joy rippling off Jaskier's skin. "Fine, I do play. A little." "Yes!" Jaskier shoots up from his seat against the tree and practically trips over himself to reach Eskel's side, dropping his lute unceremoniously in Eskel's lap once he does. "Proof!" he cries. It's been years, Jaskier whizzes off his protests. You'll remember. Come on, anything. I'm sure you know a drinking song or two. He does know some drinking songs. A few ballads, too. Eskel only ever learned how to play a chord or two, long ago when he still thought people could see witches as something more than killing machines. But some songs only use a couple chords. He picks up the instrument, taking a second to remember how to place his fingers. Eskel strums lightly, just once. And Jaskier's sense spikes with happiness so strong that he is helpless to do anything but play. It's a slow song because the chords are easier that way. He has forgotten the words over the years, but Jaskier doesn't seem to care. Eskel hums the melody as he plays. Across from him, Jaskier shuts his eyes and sways. Around the time the second chorus would come, Jaskier stands. Eskel's hands freeze on the strings, feeling as though he has touched something without permission. The bard settles down behind him and leans against his back. Ever so quietly, says, "Don't stop." Eskel plucks at the strings again. He's more hesitant this time, unsure of why Jaskier moved, yet not willing to break the spell that his unpracticed fingers have cast around their fire. He hums again, and this time Jaskier sings along. The bard's voice is low and dark. It cracks against the words in a few spots, as if overcome with emotion. It's nothing like the singing Eskel heard at the Countess's mansion. This version of Jaskier is raw and open. But the best part, the part that makes Eskel's fingers tremble on the strings, is the fact that he can feel Jaskier sing. He can feel the vibrations of his voice where the bard is pressed against him, thrumming and powerful even through layers of cloth and armor. The song plays out and Eskel lets the lute fall through slack fingers. Jaskier's singing stops. Now that the music is over, Eskel is struck by the sudden fear that Jaskier will move away. He doesn't think he could stand it. He doesn't have to. Jaskier turns around and pulls Eskel into the space between his legs, wrapping his arms around Eskel's chest. He's so close! Thank you, Eskel, that was wonderful. A shudder works its way down his spine. He groans, the sound crawling out of some hidden, broken place within him that has not been touched in decades. Jaskier's hands pull him back and Eskel lets himself fall. The bard takes his weight without complaint, pushes him down until Eskel's head is in his lap. Calloused fingers drag through his hair, just one hand, because the other is held against his chest, keeping him tethered to the ground. If it wasn't there, Eskel might just float away. Jaskier sings, not of monsters or adventure, but of home and comfort and safety. The vibrations of it shoot through Eskel's soul. He falls asleep to songs of peace, with hands on his body and not of fear in his mind. What is there to fear if Jaskier's arms are around him?